Oh, no, we're not ready. What about the microphone?
They're back in the car. They're my Alright, I'll go get them.
Oh no, it's okay. Bloopers. We'll do it next on the next one.
Okay.
Everybody.
They're in my backpack. Oh yeah, we should have
All right. Well, we're here today at Harper's Ferry, and we're taking the Murphy Farm Trail, which is a length of about 2.2 miles, and it covers the Civil War to the Civil Rights. So this is fully natural trail, but as you can see, some parts do have a bit of urban, not so much urban, but they have some cars on it. Some cars here.
the realities of the everyday modern world to make their presence known.
Actually, a little spooky. These steps. We were assured by a fellow ranger that we couldn't get lost on this trail. Let's hope she's right. Let's not prove her wrong. I said that we were in for a 2-hour trail. I mean, sorry, a 2-hour walk, but maybe I should have just said 1 hour.
Yeah, we probably aren't going to film for 2 hours, so.
No, but I mean even just walking.
Yeah.
We probably won't walk for the full 2 miles. Do you think?
No, it's probably about half that, I think. Now there were offshoots of this trail. I think we don't have to do all of those, so that may reduce the amount of time walking. Low-hanging branches.
Yes. Quite a few of these low-hanging branches. I'm just going to walk in front of you until we can get side by side.
Okay.
So, the great thing about Harper's Ferry is that it's one of these parks that seems to have a little bit of everything. So today we're walking on this trail. However, Harper's Ferry also has something of a living history type of area to it, so it's almost like a little downtown area. So if you drive into the visitor center at the Harper's Ferry National Park, you at the visitor center, you will find that the park rangers will tell you about all these different trails, like for example this trail that we're on today. But they'll also tell you about these little museums that are also part of this area here. There's like, I want to say, I don't know, I would say maybe at least for this area that there a lot of people do water sports, water type activities here. Right? On our drive-in, we found we drove by people who were doing like whitewater rafting. So if you're into that kind of water sport, this is also a really great place for that. And Harper's Ferry specifically is known for it being an important location that's part of the Civil War. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, the Civil War. That said, we are also aware that there was some sort of revolt, slave revolt, that happened here. I think it was John Brown's revolt, John Brown's slave revolt. Is that right?
Yes, John Brown.
So, if you're into Civil War history, African American history, just American history generally, into nature and walking trails, this could be a pretty good place for you. I want to point out these steps here. This is like the second or third of these kinds of like wood steps that we've gone up. So while this trail is not paved, right? So that's number one. It's not a paved trail, but they do have some level of accommodation here to make it easier for you. So it's not quite a gravel trail. It's not quite a dirt trail. It's about a little bit of both, but not fully paved, with a couple of steps here and there. And as you can see here, we just started this trail, and there's a nice little bench here. So it looks like there'll probably be benches. Yeah.
Occasionally it is nice to take a little break.
Right. Looks like we'll be able to, if you come on this adventure, you'll be able to stop and sit at one of these benches now and then throughout the trail. a bridge with a rail on only one side. I want to stop here for just a moment and take a look at this. This bug right here. This bug, I want you to take particular note, is actually highly invasive. So I was reading up, doing some research for a future trail for us, and they were talking about how they don't want to bring that particular species into their park because it feeds on so much vegetation. So here's a ranger tip here. As you travel around the world, not just in your local area, although of course we do hope you explore your own backyard, but as you travel to all these different places, you have to remember not to bring foreign species with you into these different areas, which is very easy to do because you could, like, say, go hiking in one part of the country, and then you have a bug there that is native to that area and they know how to manage it well there, but then you bring it, let's say, on a pair of shoes that you had on that last trip, and then suddenly you've just introduced a new species into that environment. So a good tip, whenever you finish hiking and you know that you're going to be going into lots of different areas, just take some time to dust off your shoes, dust off your bag or whatever. Make sure that you leave whatever you came with, whatever you found. Make sure you leave whatever you found right there. Okay, so it looks like now we're at Murphy Farm. Beautiful view here of the mountains. Now here we're on a gravel road.
very picturesque here.
It sure is. Can you drive?
Okay. I almost feel like we're walking through a painting.
Yes, I was thinking a movie.
Hmm.
You
I
know
can
those
see that
scenes
too.
where they're like they run up the dirt road
Yeah.
to the plantation.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of movies, did you want to talk about the movie you just saw?
Sure. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Yeah, you just saw Wall-E for the first time. This is not my first time seeing it, but it's your first time. So what did you think of it?
Well, let's see. I was surprised to find that it was a love story.
Mm-hmm.
So you told me that it was like the earth had been destroyed or whatever.
It's kind of a post-apocalyptic
Right,
robot love story.
right. You had me a post-apocalyptic. Therefore, I said, okay, I'll take a look. And it's pretty desolate, to start with. I was kind of grossed out by him having a roach as a friend. But, I understand that the joke is that roaches live forever. I get it.
Yeah, that's like what they say, that they're the only living thing that would survive the apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But, I mean, the love story, yes, that was very beautiful. But I think for me, the big story was the part perhaps that they didn't even really talk about, which was, and I mean, there's a bit of a spoiler here. So in the film, the directive, like there was Wall-E who was on Earth, and then there was, well, before I go into that, maybe you should just do a summary.
Okay. All right. And I guess we're talking about spoiling it anyway, so I'll just to summarize the whole thing. So, spoiler warning. Okay, so it begins on Earth in the distant future. Earth has been abandoned.
You don't have to shout.
Oh, sorry. Earth has been abandoned because it's been just overrun with garbage. So the human beings have long ago, all since boarded these luxury space cruise liners for what was supposed to be a 5-year journey into space, and they left behind these little robots called each one's called Wall-E, and these robots were meant to gather up all the garbage, compact them into little cubes, and neatly stack these cubes so as to clean up the planet so that it could begin to sustain life again. So hundreds of years have passed since then, and our little Wall-E is the only one left. It's the only one robot left on the planet that's still functional. So he goes about his directive day by day, still continuing to clean up the trash. He's developed his own little personality, his own little quirks, his own little routine. Has a roach for a friend. But then one day another robot from space shows up, and this robot's named Eve. And her directive is to look for signs that the planet can now sustain plant life. So her job is to find a plant and bring it back to the axiom, which is the flagship of this cruise liner fleet that the humans were all aboard. Well, turns out Wally had found a plant on one of his daily missions of cleaning up the earth and taken it home to put in his collection. Well, when Eve shows up, Wally falls for Eve, and he
and by falls we mean falls in love.
falls in love. Yes, falls in love with Eve, and so he's sticking around her, trying to get to know her. Eventually, she kind of softens to him and lets him take her back to his home. It's inside the delivery vehicle for these Wally robots. And he shows her all of his collection, everything that brings joy to his life. Finally, he shows her the plant. Then this activates her directive. She puts the plant inside a compartment inside of her and shuts down, sending out a signal waiting to be picked up. Wally does his best to take care of her while she's essentially comatose in this state until the ship comes back. When the ship comes back, Wally hitches a ride on it. He's not willing to leave Eve behind. He makes his way back to the Axiom, where he meets all the humans, sees how the humans are living now, and we find out that the robots are all taking care of the humans. The humans have a life of total leisure, not even having to walk anymore. The robots just take care of everything for them. They've got no purpose other than consumerism. And so Wally ends up, and Eve, they end up trying to bring the plant to the captain, which will then trigger the humanity's return to Earth. But turns out that another robot, the autopilot, called Otto, of the ship, has been given contrary orders. At one point they decided that the cleanup operation of Earth was hopeless and just ordered all the ships to just remain in space forever. So his directive now is to prevent the plant from being identified and from the Axiom to return to Earth. So ends up being a whole ordeal where Wally and Eve and a few other robots and the captain are trying to get this plant into the computer so it can detect it and send it back to Earth, while other robots that work for the autopilot are trying to stop it. And all the while, we also focus on the relationship between Wally and Eve as they're growing closer as all this happens. And that's pretty much the story.
Right. And so the part of the story that really stuck with me is the part related to what we're dealing with now in our society, which is AI, artificial intelligence. So, like, today we're like, the people who invented AI, whatever, like they've kept it under wraps for like forever. And finally, they let it out of the box, right? They've opened the box, and what's the first thing we do? We decide to use it to make money online. Okay, well, no surprise there, right? The next thing we're probably going to do is make up some kind of warheads, right? Okay. But for all intents and purposes, we're still in the very early stages of how our society is going to use AI. In this movie, they imagine a society where we are fully dependent on artificial intelligence. So just like you were saying, like they're in this world where like they basically do nothing. Like they're saying that like you don't even really literally have to lift a finger. You don't even need to walk because the artificial intelligence, these robots, are just going to take care of the act of living for you. And then I thought it was really poignant where he's like, in the film, there's this one segment where he's like, he doesn't just want to, what was it? Survive? He doesn't just want to survive.
He doesn't want to survive, he wants to live.
Right, he wants to live, right?
That's what the captain said to the autopilot.
Right. And so this occurs during the time when the human has decided that he wants to do away with the program for the artificial intelligence. And so it's like, to me, the question becomes, okay, so we give AI these commands. We tell AI that we want to do things in a certain way. Then what happens when we want to change our mind about that? So in this film, it was a big deal about the AI sticking to its directive, not going against what it was programmed to do, even if a human being, the captain of the ship, was telling it otherwise. So I'm like, well, that is a very interesting scenario, and it begs, an important question. Like, some people have this fear that AI is going to take over the world, but they shouldn't be able to take over the world unless we allow it. How can something that we have created take control of us? But if we put plans in place so that we can't do the thing, like be human, where does that leave us? It was a very, very interesting,
I think it's
proposition.
I think it's similar to the dilemma about like soldiers following orders. So like supposedly a good soldier follows orders, but there has to be room for individual human thought and decision making at some level. Because if you are given orders and the orders are just too horrible, then you've got contrary information that changes the scenario entirely. It's like, at some point, you have to be able to use your own good judgment. But that's the thing with the machines in this movie. They're not able to do that. Some of them, I think, like perhaps Wall-E or Eve, have developed to the point where they could. But the autopilot, is not capable of not following orders. Just something that's not within his program. So when the captain argues that the orders that he's following came out 700 years ago, and the situation has changed since then, the president that had given those orders is long gone, long dead. The world that he was president of doesn't exist anymore. It's been replaced with a new world that is now beginning to be able to support life again. So those orders are outdated. Using your good judgment, you would decide that it's time to disobey those orders. They're not relevant anymore.
Right.
But Otto is not capable of doing that.
Right.
So I suppose
you can hear the sound of the water from here.
Lovely. I suppose that does bring up the question of, like, so could we program good judgment into AI, so that AI could choose when not to follow orders. But and then if we did, would we want to? Could we trust that we're good enough to give them good enough judgment, or would the judgment we try to impart to them just not be good judgment and would backfire? Oh, this is lovely.
Breathtaking. Okay, Rangers, I hope you all can truly get a sense of how majestic this is right here. We're at this overlook here.
Oh, this is beautiful. You can even see out the way the river winds through the countryside.
So, I guess to answer the question, or to pick up with where you left off about can you program good judgment? I think maybe, I don't think you can, right? Because what do they say? Common sense is not common, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there could be, we could have some sort of thing where we remember to program like a program for scenarios that we don't anticipate.
I believe there's a whole field of study actually that's looking into that. The self-driving car initiative that's going on now. They're really looking into programming like scenarios that like take into account like moral questions, kind of like the trolley problem from philosophy. If the car is you swerve one way and it's going to hit like it's going to hit somebody that way, but you swerve the other way, it's going to hit somebody else that way. How does the AI choose if it's in that scenario where like somebody's going to be hurt? How does it choose to prioritize who gets hurt and who doesn't? That sort of thing. I've heard that there's like a lot of study and research going on into those, because even we humans don't really have good answers for any of those questions. So how do we program a self-driving car for that?
Right. And then the other question was, I mean, if Wally and Eve could disobey directives, does that mean that they are human?
Hmm.
Is part of being human, is it not following directions? Is that part of what makes us different from the robots?
I suppose so. I mean, I think it comes down to judgment. Like I said before, the ability to exercise your best judgment. And Wally and Eve had that. Like in the scene where Wally suggests that Eve follow her directive and get the plant back to the detector, but Wally is damaged and sitting there broken. Eve is unwilling to leave him behind, so she tells him that he's her directive now. So she exercises her judgment in that scene just to prioritize Wally over her mission. Of course, it turns out that by following her mission, that was the best way to help Wally. That gets them back to Earth where he can be repaired. But she didn't realize that at first. First, she was like, "Never mind my directive. You're my directive now."
Mm-hmm. But also, the other thing is love. Love
Yes.
is something that's supposed to make us different from humans.
Yeah. And the fact that Wally and Eve were able to fall in love, that does, I suppose, elevate them, at least in this fictional scenario. They are more than just robots, because they're able to fall in love.
So could you program someone, or could you program a thing to be human then? So like, let's say that they had programmed a Wally and an Eve robot.
Mm-hmm.
And we are saying that two of the components are, one, the ability to not follow a directive, and two, the ability to love someone, and which, of course, what is love? Let's say develop a bond or an attachment, an irrational attachment to another person or thing. Right.
Well, the movie doesn't really answer the question of, were these programmed into these robots, or was that something that developed in them through their experiences?
But so like, could you take a computer, an artificial intelligence, and develop it into a human? Could it develop into a human to have human characteristics?
I don't know, but that's a question that has intrigued sci-fi for a long time now.
It's like that echoes back to that movie, Her.
Yes. Because they created an AI that was capable of loving its human, I don't want to say owner, but...
No, it's an owner.
Yeah.
We've had a history of slavery, yes, owner.
But, so it was capable of loving its human. Spoilers for that movie, though, it became too capable of loving. It fell in love with many humans, because it was capable of, like so many more millions of computations at a single moment than, any human is capable of, that it was able to develop relationships simultaneously with many other humans across the world.
Which is probably a question about polyamory. But, okay. Well, let's stick to AI for now.
Okay. But, I think what sci-fi authors have usually posited is that if you are able to figure out how to create an artificial intelligence that is capable of learning, that it can learn and have its own experiences and learn from them, much as we humans do, then like human beings, that it will eventually learn things like the ability to love and to be self-sacrificing, and things that come with experience, judgment, and maturity for human beings. They suppose could perhaps come from experience for an AI that was programmed to be able to learn. And I think that's like a more believable scenario than the idea that human beings would be able to understand like love so well that they would be able to program a computer to be able to love.
Right. Because we
just don't understand.
Yeah, we don't really know.
We experience it, but we don't really understand it fully.
Yeah, we have songs about how we want other people to teach us what love is. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. What comes after that? I want to know what love is.
I want to feel what love is. I know you can show me.
I know you can show me. And I know, and I know, and I know. Oh. That's a great song. Okay, just ahead of us we have, what do you call those things? These people on the water?
It looks like they're kayaking.
Kayaks. Okay, we have two kayakers here. I don't know if you can see that.
Some of that water sports you were talking about earlier.
Right. It looks like one of them is kind of caught behind one of these branches or something in the water.
Looks like they just got around it.
Okay.
It's not really like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you call that rapids or not, but...
well, it's white water, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so maybe it's some degree of rapid riding going on there. I say that from this vantage point. If I were in that kayak, I'd probably be going, "Oh, these are rapids."
How does a kayak work? Do you have to use like your torso mostly to keep yourself up?
I don't know. I've actually never been kayaking. I don't know. It seems kind of, I don't want to say flimsy, but it's like, it's kind of, it seems like it would be unsteady. It seems like it would want to rock around a lot.
Yes.
So just from looking at it.
Right.
But I've never really been in one, so.
This breeze is wonderful.
Yes. This is why you go hiking. To find this spot. Or others like it.
This hair feels so good, I don't even want to move. I know we've been here for a bit. We're just coming out of a heat wave. It was like in the 90s for like a month.
Yeah. That gets old really quick.
Sure does. Which way does the trail continue?
It goes downhill.
Downhill? Are you sure? Then we'd have to come back up the hill.
I know.
That's a pretty rocky hill.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
As Ranger said that if it looked like a trail, then that was the trail. Nothing else was going to look like a trail. I guess that's the trail.
Okay, so when I start sliding,
Okay, I catch you.
you will catch me, okay?
Okay.
You heard it. You heard him say he would catch me. I don't know. Should I talk to the rangers through the camera?
Sure.
Okay. How are you going to catch me if you're in front of me, Harry?
Well,
You're going to break my fall? Is that what?
I will break your fall, yes.
What am I supposed to do if you fall? Am I just supposed to say, "Hey, Flynn"?
Come pick me up, I guess.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Okay, ooh, well, we don't actually have to do it. We can just, like, reverse course. Yeah, this is steep.
This is another one of these hills that you don't want to go down after a rain.
Ooh, yeah. We did just have a lot of rain, but it seems to have dried up enough.
Are you sure this is it? What about up there?
Do you want to go up there?
Why don't you see what's up here? I mean, this is a really steep
But we don't have to do it.
hill here.
Yeah. You know what people say about climbing a mountain? Why do they do it? They do it because it's there. You don't really have to do that.
But look, there are the signs. They're more history signs over
Okay.
here.
All right, well, let's go take a look at
Yes, let's walk towards the history signs. Okay, everyone. This also looks like a trail. Oh boy. I'm ready to slide to the Potomac today.
Okay, perhaps that was a good call then. The map did show that there were like little loops within the loop in the trail.
Right.
So that could be just a different loop within the loop.
And this one perhaps is simply one that's less traveled. So people probably get to that overlook and they're like, oh, it's so beautiful. And then they just decide to go back instead of finishing the loop.
Or they just go slide into the Potomac.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me take this off of the zoom there. Okay. So anything else about Wall-E?
Okay, so Wall-E, we're talking about robots that that, that find their humanity, and they are then reintroduced to a humanity that has lost its humanity, and they perhaps rediscover it through these robots. Is that something that you picked up on in the movie?
Robots discovering their humanity?
Yeah, and a humanity that sort of lost its humanity, just kind of become almost more robot-like.
Yes.
Just being told to consume, and they consume.
Yes, that's another good observation there. So, like, it was almost like the robots were more human than the humans at one point, because they were the ones who were living. They were the ones who were,
They had challenges. They had something to overcome.
Right.
Whereas the humans didn't. The humans had built themselves a world where all of their challenges were handed off to machines. And so, are they still living as a human, or are they just surviving as a cog in this vast network of machines?
So, how much should we offload to AI? Right?
That's
because
a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want an easier life. We all want more leisure. But we have to, as like certain sci-fi stories like this one show us, we have to have a cutoff point at some point. We have to have a point at which we say we can't make life any easier for us, because then it's no longer living. I don't know what that point is. We may be in the era where we have to begin to discover that, as AI is beginning to take off.
So I was reading this book. What is it? Business Secrets of the Bible, I think it's called.
Okay.
And the author is a rabbi. And what he does is he refers to ancient Jewish wisdom, which I think is just, biblical wisdom for some of the things that he teaches in this book, which I think is a very good book. In this book, he notes that he says that work is part of what God wants us to do. Well, let's see what. I'm trying to see if I can explain this the right way. So he said this in the context of retirement. He said that, for example, there's no such thing as retirement, right? Because it's not in the Bible. If it doesn't exist in the Bible, then it's not actually a thing. And so when people say that they're going to work for a certain number of years and then they're going to stop working, then it's like that's not a real thing. I mean, people do it, but it's not necessarily something that God intends for us to do. So when you talk about, like, well, how much do we offload to AI? It's also a question of, well, how much work do we think is expected of us as human beings?
Yeah, and that's a real question, and I don't think there's really, or at least not that I've heard, there's really a lot of philosophy to deal with that. But I would really love to see some speculative fiction dealing with issues like that. As to how much work is necessary for a a full life. Like, all right, so I mean, throughout most of human history, the amount of work that was necessary was the amount of work that was needed to,
For an individual to survive,
yes,
maybe a family.
yes. But if we reach an era where our technological advancements make it so that we don't have to work so much to survive, then how much work is necessary for our emotional and spiritual peace of mind?
Right. I mean, to a certain degree, everybody says, oh, I don't want to have to work. But there is some satisfaction in working for something and getting something because you labored for it, or because you know, wrote the words to the song, or because you put the ingredients together, because you made the sandwich, right?
Well, I find that, like, say, in creating some piece of art, whether it be a drawing or editing a video or something like that, I find that there's some satisfaction that comes with the fact that my creative choices went into this. So it's like something coming from my unique being put into something tangible that other people can see and interact with. So if that's, I think that relates to what you're saying.
Right. So you're saying that you're just confirming. You're saying
Yeah.
that you feel some satisfaction from
I feel some
from
satisfaction,
working.
and I suppose so. I didn't. That's something I really thought I would say.
Ever.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel some satisfaction in contributing something that I feel does come from within, from something like innate in me, that's unique to me. You know, in the Jetsons, they show us a vision of the future where workers like George, they go work for a horrible boss for like 3 hours a day and spend the whole day just pushing the same button over and over again for 3 hours, and then complain that it's the worst job in the world.
Right.
So there's an example of how, like, I mean, it
We've
seems
made
like
it
almost
easy.
like a world where, like, they don't really need humans to work, but
Right.
they've created jobs for humans to work just so humans have jobs.
Right.
But
That is
They're-
also another I mean, at what point do we start doing that?
yeah, I mean, and do you get any fulfillment out of that?
But do we
The same.
care at a certain point? Because maybe at some point it's just about making sure that everyone is working. Because if you're not working, what do they say? Then idle hands are the devil's playground. Then you just start doing things. You're doing disruptive things, socially disruptive things, because you have no other purpose in life.
You know, in Star Trek, they propose a vision of the future that is a post-scarcity future. This is the Replicator. They've invented the Replicator, which can convert energy into matter. And they have an abundance of energy, so they can create just about anything they want at the touch of a button, the Replicator. So there really isn't any struggle to obtain the resources one needs to survive or even thrive. But people all work in Star Trek. And they propose that it's just been a fundamental shift in the way humans approach life. What they seek to gain from work is a sense of fulfillment, a sense of bettering themselves and the world that they live in. That's the idea that's been proposed by.
So what does this have to do with a replicator machine?
Well, the replicator machine makes that possible, because without the replicator, you would still have to work in order to obtain the resources you need to live. But the replicator can give you those resources.
Without having to work.
Right.
Oh, I see. And that society is happy?
As the way that it's framed by Star Trek, it is. But the question is, I think they're imagining that the human race, human nature would fundamentally change if we reach a post-scarcity
In what way?
world. That human beings would turn inward, that they would recognize that there's this need for work to better ourselves personally and the world in which we live, and would work towards those ends instead of working just to obtain the resources to survive.
So, almost altruistic?
Yeah.
Let's see, what is this here?
Star Trek tends to specialize in portraying a very optimistic view of humanity's future. Some could argue naively optimistic, but even if it is naive, I like that there are examples of extremely optimistic futures out there.
Yes, I think that's a bit naive.
Yeah, human nature is something that is very difficult to change. So the idea that there would be this fundamental shift in human nature is perhaps naive.
That was the whole premise of the Matrix, because the computers had created a society where everything was the utopia.
Right.
And we just...
And human beings could not accept it.
Exactly. So no. Our nature is such that we have to be doing something or making something. Creation is part of who we are.
Which I think leads us back to the idea that at some point we are going to have to limit how much robotics and AI and so on can actually do for us, so that we don't reach this point where we have the situation where we have lives where we have no need to work towards anything.
Or to think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so but let's go back to Star Trek. So when you look at those episodes of Star Trek, what are they doing? They're pushing buttons.
Well,
it's like
they are doing a lot of button pushing, but there is a lot of theorizing, they are using their brains a lot. They do have to come up with, they find new planets, new phenomena. Not only do they have to catalog them, sometimes they have to come up with ways to explain them, come up with new scientific theories, experiments, observations, and that sort of thing.
Okay, so instead of having a world where we have basically become so advanced in the technology that we have to start inventing things for us to do, like pushing, right, to just push buttons. Let's see, which way do we go? We're at a fork.
Well, okay, this one looks more beaten down, at least at this part. So I suppose that one's more traveled. Do you want to take the road less traveled or more traveled?
I don't know.
Let's take the road less traveled.
Okay, we don't want to get lost.
Like
I did ask you for your opinion. Like the
poem says.
Okay. So let's see, where was I? Okay, so I was talking about perhaps a world where, oh yes, so the alternative to a world where we make up things and make up jobs for people to do so that people are satisfied. Perhaps we just continue to advance in such a manner that we do continue to think. But then, in so thinking, there are people like us who are smarter than us and have like scientific backgrounds and all that, who have thought of these very questions that we're thinking of now.
I'm sure.
And they have said that ethically, we as a consortium, council, whatever, federation, will not create technology that does X, so that we can continue to protect the humanity. But instead, we will create technology that does Y, so that we will not inadvertently keep ourselves from advancing. So like the opposite scenario could be this. If we were to create a world where we make everything so that no one has to do anything, like one, psychologically, people would be like, become despondent, right? So that there's that. But also, because they didn't need to do anything, they don't need to think. And the technology would then stagnate.
Right, technology would stagnate as the human capacity for thought stagnates.
Right. So ethically...
So now we're in idiocracy territory here.
Right.
We're talking about different futures.
So ethically, we wouldn't do that.
Right.
So a future where, so like in the WALL-E, where there's like, everybody's just sitting back in a chair and the computers are taking care of everything. Well, that would not, that would not happen, because we would not be able to advance our society.
Yeah. That's one thing I do like about WALL-E, is that in WALL-E, although it did create this picture of humanity where humanity has lost its way, it did show them being not just willing but eager to regain it once the opportunity was shown to them. So I did like, it was kind of optimistic about the human spirit in that regard. So that even if we do lose our way, we can find it again. And I hope that is true. But an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So it would be best if we don't get ourselves into that situation to begin with.
Right.
So, and I don't know if it's our generation that's going to have to deal with it, but it seems that at some point humanity is going to have to deal with how much we can allow technology to do for us.
And let's also like to, the camera's wonky again. I don't know how to
Oh no.
keep it from doing that.
The Dutch angles are back.
Right.
The robots are coming for us. Everything's all wonky.
Okay, I think we're back. Let's see if I can remember my thought. Let's see. Give me a moment.
So, all right.
Oh, yes, I remember. So the next thing I was thinking about was our education system. Like, people complain about how the American public school system is, okay, everybody, something's going on with my little machine here, so by the end of this, the video might be upside down, but we're going to keep rolling. Okay, so they're talking about how children are being taught to be computers, right? To not think, right? But instead to learn how to take a test.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, that's kind of a good analogy. Is that you're learning how to just
Follow
plug,
directions.
Yeah, just follow directions. Plug a peg A into hole B. Usually more digitally, but more or less, yeah. Just follow
Do you know how to
follow a program, a set pattern of behavior.
Right. But here's the thing. If we allow that to continue, what does this mean for our technological advancement? Not simply for like country to country, right? It's not like in a competition with other countries with better or similar education systems, but we're talking about
We're competing with AI.
exactly. We're competing with AI. How do we allow our youth, our future, to grow up in an educational system that does not value individuality, that does not value creativity, that does not value experimentation? Because all of those things are things that we need for the technology to continue to advance. I think our educational system is an ethical problem for humanity.
I think you may be right. I think, I heard on the internet the other day that the education system that we take for granted here actually not that old, like historically speaking. It's only been practiced for the last couple hundred years. Prior to that, people usually would learn a trade, usually through like an apprenticeship or something. Maybe learned a little business skills along the way, but they would get their education that way rather than through formal schooling. And that formal schooling was something that kind of arose as well, like nations were becoming more advanced and they needed more people to work the various industries that helped the country to advance. But the way society is being structured because of technological changes is changing rapidly now, which may call for a complete restructuring of the education system.
Right.
So, and who knows what that form that's going to take? Going back to something like apprenticeships, maybe homeschooling, when there's already been a lot of that being attempted now.
But who has time?
I know.
Like our society is such that like we are supposed to be making things easier for people, but there's that dilemma again that we had before. What becomes too easy?
Yeah, and we're already in a situation where the technology has advanced, but people's stress levels have gone up instead of down.
Right.
So dealing with the stresses of modern life with all the advances in modern technology is starting to reach a point where it's starting to get more stressful instead of less.
You have to find a balance, the right balance.
Exactly.
Well,
and eventually we will, but it's probably going to be a process of trial and error, and a pretty messy one at that.
okay, so it looks like we've come to the end of this hike.
Okay.
Well, Rangers, let us know in the comments what you think about any of the topics that we've mentioned here. Whether it's like from WALL-E, Star Trek, the education system, the whole concept of work, like any of that, just let us know your thoughts about that. And please subscribe. We hope that you really enjoyed our chat today. And we'll see you next time.
And range on, Rangers.
Range on.